all of the DPS specs in Midnight have been reworked, and we have played them all in the alpha and in the beta, and now it's time to put them side by side. Now we can actually see how they all rank against each other in terms of fun, not in terms of damage, because remember that it is beta and the numbers are still subject to change, but I will be looking at them very critically. And we will start it off with Affliction Warlock, because alphabetical order is the real order, and it did receive a couple of changes since last we visited and that we have ranked it, and I think I'm going to lower it a little bit into A tier. It's still a really good spec. I like what they're doing with the shard consumption and moving away from Malefic Rapture, but they did take away the two talents that I kind of praised it the most for giving it the most amount of flexibility in its damage profile. And I think that's Clawing Power, which is for every target with unstable affliction, you gain spell power, which made it so that you can spread out of unstable affliction. And there was another one when you, I think it's the one that when you press unstable affliction on a target with unstable affliction, you gain haste. So both of these I think have been removed, which it kind of dipped it a little bit for me, but it's still really good. It's still really fun. Not S tier though. Arms hasn't received a lot of changes so far. I want to put it into B tier. It is fun, but I feel like they're still not done cooking with arms in terms of what they want to do with overpower and what they want to do with slam. At least it doesn't feel like that intuitively, and I am ranking these from an intuitive perspective, from somebody that's maybe just logging into the game, reading the talents and figuring out, okay, well, this sounds like it works with this and it works with that. And if that person is also a very inexperienced arms warrior, I don't think they'll be able to figure out exactly what the good talents are and what they want to accomplish in the rotation, and I feel like that's a major loss when it comes to attracting new blood into the spec. Assassination Rogue has been praised and still is the premier rogue spec to play, and I don't know if I want to put it into S tier, but it is really fun. This is also very personal for me. For instance, I bet Marcelian would put it into S tier, and I am keeping that in mind as well. However, it still feels like it's taking a little bit away from the fantasy of Rogue, and mostly because I think King's Bane is just not that amazing of a button to press. It feels like it does a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes, but I don't see it, I don't feel it, so I cannot really care too much about it. But outside of that, it's very solid, and not to mention it's A tier. A tier is like almost perfect. It's almost chef's kiss. Augmentation is fine. I think C tier will be the quintessential, B and C tier probably will be the quintessential okay, middle of the pack. Nothing amazing to say about it, nothing bad to say about it either. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of the Evoker. I like the concept of augmentation, and the rotation is simple. It's okay. I feel like it is definitely better than it is in the War Within, but it doesn't really speak to me on top of all of the specs that have received some really cool changes. Balanced Druid hasn't received any other changes since we've last seen it. I think I ranked it fairly high, but I don't think it's been S tier now that I've played a bunch more specs. I have a more specific opinion of what S tier should be, as in the creme de la creme, the bee's knees, and Balanced Druid is not it. I don't know if it's necessarily in front of Affliction either, or in front of Assassination. It is good. It's surprisingly good because it just has a lot of things that it can do, and that's a rare thing coming in Midnight with all the clash pruning, and that's great with the amount of buttons that you can play. And if they actually make Full Moon, New Moon, or all of the Moon abilities playable in Elun's Chosen, you could actually be in for some fun time, especially if you like a few more buttons on your bars, action bars, rotation bars. Arcane Mage also is remaining in A tier. They have been changing a little bit how the talents work. I feel like Arcane is still really fun. I am still constantly surprised at each rework of Arcane and how it's coming along, and always finding new ways to put the fun aspect into it. And I like the fact that they're trying new things, and most of the new things that they're trying are actually really interesting and really fun to play. And if you enjoy our content and our videos, we would be super grateful if you hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button on the channel. It definitely helps the channel grow, the videos grow, and we can have more cool stuff, projects in the future that we've been working on for the past couple of weeks that you might not know of until sometime after this video has been released. But we would appreciate it. And if you want to support us even more and be a part of the team, our Patreon at patreon.com/Marcelian&Flame. I was gonna say Marcelian Online. All the Habits does have a lot of goodies for you to check out, exclusive for only patrons. Thank you so much for the support. Love y'all and enjoy this rest of the rest of this video. These types of bloopers would be also available on the Patreon, by the way, because I stumble over my words a lot of the time. Moving on. Beast Mastery is a nope spec for me. I am very sad with Beast Mastery. Nothing has changed for it ever since it was released that I can recall. It is very boring. It has no interesting parts of its rotation. Everything that happens passively. Whenever a passive thing happens, nothing incredible happens in the combat area either. This is basically a pop your Netflix on your second monitor and play Beast Mastery, and whatever buttons you press, likely is you'll do enough damage to do whatever content you're doing. That's not interesting for me. That's not what I would imagine having to pay 15 bucks a month to play is supposed to be. Not to mention that the fantasy of it is something that I fell in love with 20 years ago, and it's not delivering on that. And if it's all happening in my mind, oh look, there's beasts there, but no button that you press will make them do more damage or move to a certain place or interact with you in any way, is just what are we even doing, guys? But that out of the way. Demonology is also very peak. I would put it actually in front of Affliction because I like what they're doing with Demonology. It is fun to play. It's missing, let's say, some implosion attention going into, for it to be able to go into S tier. I love the fantasy of it, and if we're going to imagine fun also being part of class fantasy and class flavor, it definitely has it. Maybe it has the most out of all of the specs in Midnight with the amount of demons and the way that you can summon these demons and what they can do for you in battle. If Beast Mastery could actually take that same concept and make it more interesting, and just whoever's working on Demonology has to work on Beast Mastery. Just please. I want my demons to not just be passive, my beasts to not be passive dots, because Demonology does it right. Great for you, Demonology. You rock. Destruction is a little bit a little bit meh. I think it's a middle of the pack, but it does have awesome visuals, and I feel like the Echo of Sargeras, or whatever the ability is called from Epic Silence, that shoots the beam of chaos damage, Shadow Flame damage into the enemies, feels like there's a Legion ship orbiting Azeroth, a little bit Starcrafty, and it's shooting down my enemies whenever I spend Soul Shards on Rain of Fire and Chaos Bolt, of course, and whenever I shoot out Incinerates. But just visuals isn't enough, because Demonology has visuals, but it also has some meat on the bones, which is why it's a little bit higher. But still, B tier is not too bad. Warlock is eating great. Probably to nobody's surprise, if you have been watching our content, I feel Fire Mage is maybe even a worse offender than Beast Mastery Hunter, because it just has been stripped of pretty much. I'm not exaggerating, I'm not hyperbolic here. It has been stripped by everything that I found fun on Fire Mage. Almost everything. Nothing that Fire Mage still retains is particularly interesting or unique. The mobility, the access to instant spells, the versatility of handling different types of encounters and phases of a boss by having access to more instant spells, so being able to cast while moving, to alternating between Fire Blast and Phoenix Flames. Like all of that, the concept is still simple, but now you just have, I think, half of the buttons that you had before, and you just end up casting a lot of fireballs. This is a totally different version of Fire Mage that I've ever played, and as opposed to Arcane, who somehow manages to kind of make new fantasies and flavors work, Fire Mage just doesn't do that. Frost Mage does though, which is also again really surprising. I rank Frost Mage as a definitely W winner in Midnight with what it's accomplishing with the new rework. And if you want to rework something and also keep it simple, I think Frost Mage is definitely how you do it. I definitely hold Frost Mage in a very high regard. It's not perfect, and maybe ranking into A tier is a little bit too much. I'm a little bit hopeful, let's just say, because Water Elemental doesn't really do much, and they did change the Master Lancer capstone into, I think, Thermal Void is now, since last we did the Frost Mage video, and now Flurry, or at least Brain Freeze consuming Flurry, launches an additional Ice Lance, if I recall. This went through, like, I think 2 changes, and I'm getting confused, right? It's like 40 specs minus healers and tanks, but it is good, and I do definitely recommend you play it. Marksmanship, ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's put this back here, and Marksmanship goes, I think if we put Frost Mage in A tier, Marksmanship has to be in A tier as well. It's definitely a more polished version of Marksmanship, although it is very controversial having very long cast times on aimed shots. I am not opposed to that, considering that at least when we tested marksmanship, those aim shots were hitting, baby, and they do have to hit pretty hard. It has been polished slightly since we made the video. It is slightly better to play, and I can only expect great things from marksmanship going into the future. I want to feel like a sniper. I want to feel like I'm prepping a shot. I'm aiming it, if you will, and when it hits, it slaps, and marksmanship does deliver on that. Outlaw Rogue has been a very meh spec. I'm gonna put it into D tier. I feel like Outlaw Rogue, similar to BM and Fire, although not as bad, is a good example of taking it a little bit too far. Roll the Bones is not an interesting ability whatsoever. It's kind of like a slightly more complex slice and dice maintenance buff, and that's not where you want your goals to be as a designed class, to just have, oh, just remember to always press this whenever it is available. The only time you probably don't press Roll the Bones is when you get like the third buff or whatever, the third rank of the buff. There's not even buffs specifically that have unique flavor to a pirate slash outlaw slash cowboy slash rogue type class. It's just buff 1 is good, buff 2 is better, buff 3 is best. Oh, come on, bro. It's like a 5-year-old is trying to play Outlaw. I'm sorry. This is just not for me. And Between the Eyes is just... I don't know. I want to move on. I want to move on from Outlaw. We've talked about it enough. One surprise that I did have was indeed Survival. Now, I don't know if it keeps up with the rest. I was very happily surprised by how good the rotation felt to play, and that is something that I really care about, because the fantasy of Survival is all over the place. Now we just have a lot of explosions. It feels like we're in a Michael Bay movie, class, game, doesn't really matter. You explode a lot of things and burn things to ash. But if you can take that away, the rotation itself is actually really cool, and I have enjoyed playing Survival. I think it's definitely a W in that front in Midnight. Devastation is also a really good spec. Bro, are we gonna just have a lot of H? I just realized, I never really thought about it too much, but Devastation is definitely really good. I think it's maybe one of the best classes in terms of rework, where it doesn't have like, oh my god, this is probably really amazing or really broken type things, and it definitely doesn't have like, oh my god, this is so boring, it actually does nothing type things. It's the perfect middle of the pack with it just working well. The way that they've remade mostly Flame Shaper has made it into a more enjoyable playstyle to go into, with 2 charges of Fire Breath to consume it. I think we already have a Devastation video out that you can check on our channel, so I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but it is really fun, and I definitely have been surprised by it. Probably to nobody's surprise, Devourer is one of our first S tier specs. It's definitely the new kid on the block. It's definitely undergoing quite a few changes since it is the new spec, and it's shaping up to be better and better to play. I feel like this is probably, let's say, the lowest S tier that we might have, because it's definitely missing a little bit of meat on the bones, which is a syndrome of new specs coming into the game. They definitely don't want to make it too overwhelming for new players to get into. They definitely want to attract a new crowd, to people that just like looking at cool, shiny things. That's definitely Devourer. It has a very simple range spec caster to play, where you're kind of like a BM hunter where you can cast while moving, or you can zoom in, zoom out with some really dynamic playstyle with melee, which is not that complex as most people might imagine. You just jump in with Voidblade and eventually retreat out, and then just continue playing range caster. So that's mostly it as well. Elemental is definitely an S tier in our book. Also, something that people have had very strong opinions about, because it did lose quite a bit. But again, pruning a class doesn't necessarily mean deleting its buttons, and Elemental was definitely maybe one of the most button-heavy specs on this list, and somehow it retained almost all of its mechanics and systems and procs, but made either passives or combined with other abilities, and they're still part of your class. You definitely activate them by pressing buttons. They don't just happen passively like they do with Beast Mastery, so it feels like you have agency over it, while the spec is incredibly simplified, and I am a strong supporter of Elemental, similar to Enhancement Shaman. Almost the exact, I think probably the team or the person that has handled Elemental probably handled Enhancement as well, because the theme is the same. Doom Winds is now part of Ascendance, for instance. Feral Spirits are just proccing from your Sundering and Doom Winds, respectively, to get more wolves out. So you just have a lot of the buttons that you suppress baked into an already existing button, in terms, at least in terms of the cooldowns, and boring abilities that were just fillers like Ice Strikes are gone, which is fantastic, because who cares about Ice Strike anyway? I feel like Enhancement is maybe a little bit in danger of having some downtime, but that's not necessarily new for Enhancement, and some of its best iterations have had some versions of downtime in the past. Feral Druid has received one big, or maybe a few smaller changes since last we've seen it. I think I'm going to put it into A tier. Chomp has been addressed a little bit to make it a more enticing ability to press, and that's really great, because I was having some reservations regarding Chomp. That is the new ability that Feral is getting through its talents, because it felt a little bit counterintuitive or a little bit not that interesting to press, because it definitely has high competition with Ferocious Bite and stuff like that. It's not a finisher ability, but it felt like it was promoting a gameplay you weren't really incentivized to play, as in draining your energy aggressively to be able to press Chomp. So I'm glad that that's been addressed a little bit, and Feral is also really good, but I do feel like it's suffering from very poor hero talent design. I wish it would get the hero talent revamp that Devastation has received, so that it can be good, because in that sense, Feral is actually worse in terms of Devastation, in terms of fun. Frost Decay is just really solid. I'm debating whether or not I should put it into S and A tier. I know Marcelian is a very big Death Knight fan and very big Frost Death Knight fan. It didn't really change much in Midnight, and it's already very solid right now on live, and maybe because it didn't really change much in Midnight, it's A tier. It's not a bad spec in any way, shape, or form. It's one of the most complete specs out there, and I just feel like maybe I wanted a little bit more on the hero talent front. I wanted something a little bit more interesting with Deathbringer, something a little bit more interesting with Rider of the Apocalypse. It still feels like there's some leftover archaic systems in Frost Death Knight. I'm not really sure what Death and Decay is supposed to do right now. I don't really care about it anymore. I mean, you kind of don't really care about it on live either as much, but I digress. I think it's still solid. It's A tier. Fury, on the other hand, has kind of dipped down a little bit, and I'm mostly sad because they reverted the functionality of Rampaging Ruin. Was that the ability? Or Rampaging Onslaught? Whatever talent was that when you press Rampage, you just splash damage on up to 8 targets. Now, that's not a necessarily class-defining ability, but it did address a very concerning issue that Fury has had, and people that have played Fury have complained a lot, and that is being almost hard capped at 5 targets, which is not a fun place to be, and definitely has held Fury back almost the entire time throughout the last expansion. And them putting it into the game and letting Fury hit up to 8 targets felt like, oh, okay, we recognize, we see you there. But then they reverted it back to only work on up to 5 targets. So I'm confused as to what Fury is supposed to be. Overall, its talent tree is not that amazing. It's okay, but because they took that away and because they didn't really address a lot of the issues with the talent tree that I personally didn't really enjoy, I think it's C tier. It's not terrible, but it could use a little bit more help. Now, some of the best Apex talents are definitely with Havoc. I could be a biased Demon Hunter right now, which has been something that has crept up on my radar in the last couple of months, but I believe these are probably the most impactful and most fun Apex talents that we have right now, where your hunt actually enables your I-beam to be bigger and better and meaner, and that's just a core ability of Havoc. It does force me to play the hunt, although I'm not really sure I wouldn't play the hunt, to be honest with you. And I-beaming also makes your Blade Dance reset once you cast it after the I-beam, giving you back-to-back Blade Dances, or in this case, Death Sweeps, since you would be in Demonic, in meta, if you pressed your I-beam. And if you couple that with maybe some momentum gameplay, maybe some Essence Break, you can have some really tiny windows of extreme burst damage. And I know not everybody likes that, but you don't have to play that. It's obviously a choice. The talents are definitely improved. Havoc is just a polished spec. It's a more polished spec. It's what I would hope Devourer would end up being, maybe by the end of Midnight, maybe in Last Titan, but definitely Havoc takes the cake in terms of Demon Hunter DPS. Red Paladin is something that I am right now having a crisis over. I'm loving more and more the Paladin class, and I want a reason to play Red. I always want a reason to play Red to main Red, but it is a very simple and boring spec. I feel like it's better designed than a lot of these classes, but it's missing a little bit of meat on the bones. What it has is decent, however, after coming off of playing Holy Paladin and realizing, okay, talents can actually be interesting even if you have a lot of them, even if they do different things, even if they affect different playstyles. While with red, it all feels like it's all boiling down to just pressing the same button no matter what talent tree you have, no matter what build you press, nothing really ever changes for red, and that's usually my main concern with red. And also red got back Crusading Strikes, and yay for options, but I felt like putting Templar Strikes in the hands of the players would add some new freshness to his rotation, and I don't know if that's gonna happen anymore. Shadow Priest has just received some recent changes, and none of them seem really that interesting to me. I feel like some of the core identities of Shadow Priest are around you actually tapping into Shadow, but it mostly feels like Void right now. I like that they're focusing more on Tentacle Slam, which is the new ability that Shadow Priest is getting into Midnight, but not really new because it replaces Shadow Crash, and a lot of the Shadow Crash functionalities are in Tentacle. And last I checked, Shadow Priest still doesn't have Mind Flay Insanity, which I loved 100% because it was really cool. I love channeled abilities, and packing a lot of damage into a short ability that just explodes was really fun. I'm just on the fence. I will put it into B tier. I feel like it's shaping up to be an overall better spec. It is marginally fun. Man, I'm gonna put it into C tier. I am still waiting for the day where Shadow Priest can be an interesting spec. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen. There's too many passive talents that affect just passive abilities with no actual change in rotation. Shadow Ward Death is not really that interesting anymore. But who knows? Maybe I need to give it another chance. It's just not attracting me at the moment, and that's a good point to make. Because if the wrap doesn't make me want to buy the candy bar, why would I ever taste the candy bar in the first place? Subtlety Rogue is still down bad. I think last time I had it into F tier. They are trying to make stealth abilities and Shadow Dance more impactful in the last couple of changes, and that is the direction that they should take Subtlety in. It's definitely not there. It's definitely not the Subtlety that I fell in love with, and with the way things are shaping up, I don't know if it will ever be outside of just a proper full facelift. Something that, I don't know, maybe Frost Mage has received in this list, or maybe something like Enhancement or Elemental. But until then, unfortunately, as a big fan of Subtlety Rogue, I cannot rank it any higher. Unholy DK is definitely shaping up to be an incredible spec. I'm not sold off on it yet because it's kind of trying one too many things, which is not bad. It's great that they're trying one too many things, but with 40 specs in the game, it's kind of hard to always get back to it. The changes are definitely better than what Unholy was before, and I like what they're trying to do with Putrefy and the flexibility that this mechanic lets them use to add different things to Frost, to Unholy Death Knight in terms of how it's working and how it's handling its resource. That's great, and I'm kind of getting the vibe that it's just not finished, that they just don't know where the final product is going to be. So I'm kind of waiting to see that happen. But of course, it's top of the A tier, so I cannot really complain too much. And last but not least, Windwalker is just okay. I'm keeping up with every Windwalker change that I have seen the developers make for the spec in alpha and in beta, and I just cannot figure out why I would want to play this, considering why I fell in love with it in the first place has most of it gone. Similar to Fire Mage. Unsimilar to Fire Mage, it is still decently fun to play. It still retains the core Windwalker kit, but all of the flashy toys that make it stand out above the rest have been stripped away. We now have a new cooldown called Zenith that uses the Weapons of Order icon and replaced Stormwrath and Fire. You can say that Windwalker had one too many cooldowns, and this is where my bias is showing, because I loved having Stormwrath and Fire, Invoke Zhuen, Strike of the Wind Lord, Conduit of Celestials, Slicing Winds, Whirling Dragon Punch. All of these little mini abilities from a 2-minute cooldown to a 30-second cooldown felt like for Windwalker Monk you always had something to do, and it wasn't just your basic rotation. That's what appealed to me, but that's been stripped away, so I cannot rank it any higher than B tier. But this is what we think of the spec so far in terms of fun, of course, because numbers are definitely due. We've just started playing M+ on the beta, so you can check us out on twitch.tv/Marcelian&Flame and see where that leads us. But what you can also watch, because I did mention Devastation being a really good design spec, you can check our Devastation coverage right here. Of course, we have almost all of the specs covered, but you can start with Devastation right now and see if you're right, because we don't really have really good and praising and positive videos on our channel about the lizards. So this is your chance to get one before it goes away.